It's Talk Funny, a podcast by Mark Bailey and other comics from all over. We ended up in Japan because we wanted to see a country that can read thousands of kanji letters, but is stumped by one arrow sign. The Talk Funny podcast from NagoyaRadio.com and Nagoya Comedy. Here's Mark Bailey.
Welcome back to Talk Funny. I'm Mark Bailey. We're here with Steve Howard.
Hello.
What I do now on stage, when I go to the States, 2-minute self-introduction. My name is Mark. My personal pronouns are Emperor of the Known Dimensions and Mr. and that guy. And, oh, I'm sorry, I'm out of time, but that was been my set. Thanks, guys. So, you did a open mic in Portland, so could you tell us about that?
Well, I did two. The first one was actually in a really big theater, and there was probably about 100 people in the audience. So it was one of the biggest crowds I've ever performed. And I went on first, but it was, I was a little bit nervous because I'd only done comedy here in Japan, and I wasn't sure how the audience was going to react. But I got laughs, so I was pretty happy about that. And then the second time I did it was just at this little tiny bar, and it was in the front room, and basically everybody was sitting in couches, and there was a mic and no stage. But it was both times it was good, and it was a lot of fun. So.
Did you find yourself censoring yourself or pre-censoring yourself for the imagine it possibly SJW crowd?
Yeah, I mean, that was in the back of my mind. So there was some of the stuff that I probably would normally do in Japan that I didn't do while I was there. But it definitely was in the back of my mind when I was performing. But I didn't see too much of it really. Actually, a lot of the guys were in their early and mid 30s anyway. So maybe they weren't quite the 20-something super extreme SJW types, but I didn't see too much of it, fortunately.
I noticed in New York, I have a lot more and more. There's just a lot more millennials in the audience, and they're not even. They basically need to be trained on comedy. So I spend a lot of time actually kind of teaching them what comedy is, because I would mention a premise, and they would say, well, that doesn't happen. I listen, and so I have to explain. Oh, I said, I went to a farmer's market in New York. Farmer's market is 89% Asian. The rest is Hispanic.
Uh-huh.
This is my old joke. I used to do it in New York. I used to work a lot, and I do it now from millennial audiences. And I say, we did this in Brooklyn. Went down to the farmer's market. I dropped my keys. And 5 Vietnamese guys came running because they thought I was saying their name. So I said, so how can you be a hippie if you don't even remember Woodstock 99? I mean, they're like, well, Woodstock 99, what other one is there? The one where Live played, And I said, once upon a time, there was a band before Wings that Paul McCartney was. Paul McCartney did stuff before Kanye West. But I noticed with them, I did a lot more of the Chris Rock style, restating the premise over and over. And you have to say, I'm not a racist. I have 2 biracial kids, so if you call me a racist, we're going to have a problem. I'm going to take you down a wrong tangent, and I'm going to win. Let's just get through the joke. And then I'll say, people, everybody's the same except for Chinese people. They like to break line. That's racist. Okay, how many Chinese people have you met? Yeah? Okay, a couple? I've met all of them. I met every freaking Chinese person. So you have to kind of train them and say, this is comedy. This is not Twitter. Try to imagine a place where you could actually be humorous and sarcastic. Not Tokyo Comedy Store, of course, but use humor, sarcasm, and maybe fantasy, and maybe have a good time. Trying to imagine a room like that, because that's where the hell I thought I was performing tonight. And after a while, and I restate the premise, and they'll say, "You already said that," and I said, "Yeah, but I have to keep restating it because some guy will just walk in and go, oh, the guy hates Chinese people." I buy all my TVs, computers, drums. I buy everything. I buy my clothes, everything from Chinese people. Apparently, I love Chinese people. Sorry.
Did you notice a similar situation with millennials in Tokyo when you performed up there as well? Or
in Tokyo, they have a lot of tourists, and they seem to have a lot of Northern Europeans.
Oh, okay.
Which speak English on paper. But they don't get the humor. I mean, they're very polite. So if you say that you're going to cut up your wife later, well, I guess that's a lifestyle. And I don't know why that's funny. It's tragic, actually. And they don't. Later, I talked to them, a lot of Swedes and stuff, and so. What I found I had to do in Tokyo, I headlined Good Heavens, a lot of nerds in the audience.
Oh, okay.
And so I did more of my nerdy stuff, like the alphabet stuff and the attention deficit disorder. And, my cousin, he only learned half the alphabet, so he doesn't know why. And I had to pause a lot more. I had to do crowd work and say, so how many people do we have that actually understand what I'm saying right now, And then we have, like, Swedish people, and I'd say, so where are you from? From Sweden. But you had to do it individually. And what I found, and I did this, luckily, but I found at other places, it helped a lot to go before the show and greet each person at their table and go, how you doing? I'm not a jerk. I'm doing comedy up here, and meet them. But a lot of good-looking models, a lot of girls, good-looking girls up there, a lot of beautiful Polish girls up there. But what I noticed at Good Heavens is where I would normally get laughter, I would get silence, and then, oh, very good. Yeah, clever. That's clever. So it wasn't heckling. It was just kind of slower than what I'm used to in New York. In New York, you'll do something and then the laugh is immediate because they're in on the frequency. But in Tokyo, a lot of the tourists come to see if they can understand comedy. Could you do that like on somebody else's set? I'm headlining tonight. This is kind of... So I watched them all doing everybody else's set, and they'd nod at the punchline, and then they'd laugh at the next premise because they were laughing at the previous punchline. Okay. So what I wrote notes that said, uncomfortable pauses are fine. And Pete Seidel, you've probably seen him. He's very good at that. And he does Good Heavens a lot. And he said, you kind of have to. You kind of have to. I said, those are extremely uncomfortable silences. They're about, between his jokes, is like 9-11 seconds.
Wow.
And I said, that is, in Nagoya, that's fodder for hecklers.
Yeah.
And we don't do it. Well, you have to, because most of them aren't native English speakers. So even the Germans, he said, if you wait 9-11 seconds, even the Germans will go, ha ha, das ist gut, das ist gut. So my favorite part of watching him is just the uncomfortable silences, because I'm like, please don't let anybody heckle. Please no. And so that's one of the differences. And then we did it in Osaka, and then half the audience was comics. Were comics, and so they would sit there with their arms folded, and they were supportive, but as a comic. Break a leg, but not both of them. And so we're comics, and I noticed, I could say this now, but when we went to Osaka, we went the day before to the Roar comedy guys. They were very supportive of us, and our show was the next night, and they let us in for free to see their show. But I had heard their act 12 times, and they hadn't changed any of it. And one guy, even complaining, when he got on stage, he said, I was going to tell my jokes from last night, but there's two girls who were here last night, and they're here tonight too. So now I guess I got to do a new set. So I said, welcome to Nagoya Comedy. But he said, it's tourists, so we can do the same set over and over and over again. So you polish it and you do it very well. But I noticed I had heard their sets, and I wanted to laugh, but I noticed I had to fake my laughter. And I actually told Mike Miller, I said, one of the headliner, he's going to do a joke about the Tokyo Olympics. He's going to do a joke about... I said, I heard this a year ago, and he's going to do it. I said, it's a good joke, but I've heard it 12 times now. So I'm not sure if I can fake laughing at it. That was his closer. It's when he said that, I looked at Mike. I'm from the future, see? And I told him all of the headliners' bits. He said, do this, in this order. And he did it exactly in that order. I faked laughing. When a comic hears something, comics can kind of see... Oh, this is a plus B joke. Oh, this is a flim flam joke. Oh, this is a different expectations joke. Oh, this is fish out of water joke. And so, Penn and Teller, can you imagine a whole audience of Penn and Tellers trying to do a magic trick? That's what I thought you were going to do. And the funniest part of the night for Osaka was we had a baby that was heckling us. Just for some reason, the baby always whined on the punchline of one of our guests from Tokyo, And so Mike and I said, I'm going to roast that frickin' baby. So Mike and I just started writing baby jokes in lieu of our sets. So, get on and say, the babies make a lot of noise tonight because babies drink for free here. Welcome to everybody that came and bought a ticket and the baby. I just want to say something. The baby been making a lot of noise. You're immature. You mean nothing in life. You're never going to be anybody, and neither is your baby, Mom. And by the way, she never bought a ticket, so we were kind of angry about it. And even the Roar guys, they were like, that's why we don't play here anymore, because the owner doesn't stick up for you. And so we were saying things like, well, the baby's just angry we didn't tell more booby jokes, because that's his whole world, And stop being such a baby, And I've never been heckled by a baby before. I did this show 25 years ago. I did some abortion jokes. Somebody didn't listen. Nobody aborted the mom. So we were doing that, and later the Roar guys, they said, "You're pretty vicious on that baby." And I said, and, I'm lucky I didn't throw that baby out.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any bathwater. This has been Mark Bailey. We've been here with Steve Howard, and thanks for listening to Talk Funny.